Hello, and welcome to another edition of All or Not According to Jack. As you can see, I have a very special guest today, David LaGreca, who he does the radio show Busted Open on Sirius XM Radio. So, hi, David. How are you?
Hi, Jack. How you doing? Appreciate you having me on today.
Well, thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. And also, we have George Parsekian. George is my daughter Sam's boyfriend and big longtime wrestling fan.
Pleasure's always to be here.
Yeah, I think he was a wrestling fan before he even started walking.
Yeah, probably.
Good.
Before he climbed that top rope the first time.
Good job. I like it.
My parents' couch.
So, Dave, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, like you said, I host Busted Open on Sirius XM. I created the show back in 2009. It's now the number one show on sports show on Sirius XM. We have also one of the top podcasts in the Busted Open podcast. I host it along with Bully Ray, Bubba Ray Dudley, awesome. Tommy Dreamer, and Mark Henry. And as I said, I've been doing it for 13 years. So pro wrestling is definitely a big part of my life.
Oh, awesome. And I love the little animal stuffed wrestling figures and the face of Cody Rhodes behind you.
Bully Ray there too.
Yep,
Bully, and then that's my fat head. You might have seen it from time to time. So
yeah, and it looks like you got your own stuffed figurine made.
Yes, that's somebody made me a wrestling buddy. So
that's awesome. Cool. I had the Macho Man growing up.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's very cool. So thanks for that, Dave. So basically what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about and then this is in kayfabe speak, our top wrestling heels, our top 5 wrestling heels. So basically, I'm going to have George go first, give his 5. Then David, you can give yours. Then I'll give mine. Then if we have some time, we can talk about some honorable mentions. So,
all right, sounds good to me.
Okay, the floor is yours, George.
All right, I'm going to start number 5. I got to see not as much of him, but I actually went back and reviewed some stuff for this show. So I'm going to go Bobby Heenan. That feud he had with the Ultimate Warrior always comes to mind for me. He's great. When he got stuffed in the
weasel suit. Oh, that was great. Yeah.
And obviously, so I was a big NWO guy. So when he wanted to coach the Horsemen, I thought that's when he first got into I was like, oh, who is this guy? I was an NWO guy. Right. So I thought that was cool. I put him at number 5, and number 4, leading right into that, I'm going to go Ric Flair and the 4 Horsemen, because their heel work on WCW was insane. They were probably the top heels for 10 years at least. I feel like they were there for a long time. And I'm going to go more to my era for number 3, the top heel for my era in my opinion, and the ultimate final boss, Triple H at number 3. Always felt like the world championship meant more when it was on his shoulder than anyone else in his era. And great in-ring performer, and he just made you want to see him get his ass kicked every week. Not
to mention, he had no problem running over that guy with a car to meet his end. Yeah.
That was a weird storyline, but one of the greatest heels of all time. Loved him in DX. Loved everything he ever did. Number 2, I'm gonna go Roddy Rowdy Piper.
Okay.
The coconut incident with Jimmy Superfly Snuka will forever live in infamy. He was just made you he knew how to, either way, whether he was a face or a heel, he knew what he wanted to get out of the crowd, and he always got it. He always got what he wanted to get out of the crowd.
Right.
And I had a really hard time not putting him at number 1. I'm going to run down a quick honorable mention. I think MJF is going to be the next Ric Flair, in my opinion, in that heel sense.
Really?
Maybe not in ring work wise, but I just want to see him get his ass kicked every week, even though I love him. Being from Long Island, I also love him. I cheer him when I see him, but I get the psychology of it. He's great with his heel work. Then I'm gonna go Rated R Superstar. One more honorable mention for Edge, my favorite wrestler of all time, the ultimate opportunist. Did a great job with that and took that chance that Vince gave him to be a world champion. A lot of people were like, I don't know, but he took it and ran. 11-time world champion, and he was great at it. But the number 1 heel of all time, and it's not even an argument in my opinion, is Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is the #1 heel for my guy right here, Steve Austin, the greatest wrestler in my opinion of all time. So how could you not put Vince at #1? Just it was me all along, Austin. So many great moments. He just taking the first stunner to taking the last stunner, that even makes him more of a heel. How do you take 2 terrible stunners, your first and your last?
Anybody who takes a defibrillator
that was a great him in the I got it from here, nurse, and just took him out. That was great. I mean, Vince took it like a good sport too, and I'm not a big Vince fan, but took it like a good sport, and greatest heel of all time. That's my top 5.
All right, thank you, George. David.
All right, I think there's a couple of repeats here from your list, George. One that's not on your list that I feel is one of the best heels of all time, and went up against probably one of the biggest baby faces of all time, and that's Raven in ECW. The feud with Tommy Dreamer, I think, is one of my favorite feuds, top 10 feuds of all time. And, you know, you speak about emotion, and that's what a real heel does, is get you emotional. Raven was able to do that. And that feud is just fantastic. So I have Raven at 5. At number 4, I have the Iron Sheik. And I know that the Iron Sheik has kind of gone to a completely different level because of social media over the last 10 years. But the feud he had with Sergeant Slaughter in the early 80s, and then the feud he had with Hogan that led, and all you need to really do is listen to when Hogan beat the Sheik when he became WWF champion in January of '84, and that tells you everything. A lot of it had to do for the love of Hogan, but I think a lot of it had to do with the hatred for the Iron Sheik.
Absolutely.
At 3 is George, you mentioned him, and I totally agree, Roddy Piper. The feud with Jimmy Superfly Snuka in '84, the Piper's Pit in Allendale. Actually, I think it was at the Hamburg Field House in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, that Piper's Pit. But that shows you all you need to see and hear from Piper. But I was also at a live Piper's Pit at the Meadowlands in '85 when Salvatore Bellomo was one of his guests. And if you want to hear pure hatred, it's on YouTube. Go to Live Piper's Pit with Salvatore Bellomo, and just everybody throwing debris at Piper.
I thought I heard him say, he said, I didn't order a pizza or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. It was low hanging fruit, like some of the stuff he said you wouldn't be able to get away with now, but man, he just knew how to get under people's skin. At 2, and probably has to go hand in hand with his greatness, because I happen to think he's the greatest of all time, and that's Ric Flair. The new series that's available on Peacock right now, when it goes over all the greatest heels of all time, it has Sasha Banks, and it has Hollywood Hogan, it has Ric Flair. I'm actually featured on the Flair and the Brothers of Destruction episodes. Flair is up there. And like you mentioned, the Four Horsemen, you know, one of the greatest factions of all time, if not the greatest faction. And to me, the greatest of all time is Flair. The feud with Dusty, right on down the line. Ric Flair, number 2. And I agree with you, George, that number 1 has to be Vince McMahon, because he is truly a real life heel. Whether it's storyline related or not, a lot of people just despise Vince McMahon, and for good reason. So at 5, I got Raven. At 4, the Iron Sheik. At 3, Piper. 2, Flair. And number 1, Vince McMahon.
It's funny to put Raven on there. I love Raven. I do love Raven.
And as far as honorable mentions, I got to throw, like George did, MJF. I mean, he's only 25 years old. His career is very, very young, but I've had MJF on my show many times. But more importantly, I've had his parents on my show many times, and they despise him.
Do they actually despise him, or is that Kate?
So at an honorable mention would be MJF.
He's great.
Okay.
Because he's so young, that's why he didn't make my top 5. He's just
and I think it's going to take time. You know, because you're talking all time. But you know what? He may not be in my top 5, but he's in my top 10. Yeah. And that tells you something. So
he's amazing. What he's doing right now at his age. when it's all said and done, he'll be in the top 5. He's gonna get
Yeah. Well, we may discuss him a little bit more. So, okay, on to mine. So it's funny, David, you mentioned the Iron Sheik, first of all. So I actually was so I live near the Nassau Coliseum, and I used to see all the house shows when I was a kid there. And one of the more memorable ones was when Iron Sheik was a bad guy and they put him against Andre the Giant. And Andre just destroyed him, and the crowd was just in a frenzy. It was the greatest thing. So funny. But my number 5 is actually his nemesis in the 80s, Sergeant Slaughter. So when Sergeant Slaughter first came up, he was this mean, rugged, sergeant guy, and most of these from when I was a kid, and I really didn't understand kayfabe, and I really, really hated them. So I remember the time that he whipped Bob Backlund with his riding crop, and you could see the welts all over his back. Then there was the time he turned heel again, and he became the Iraqi sympathizer.
I remember that.
Yeah.
91. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they finally put him over Nikolai Volkov, who they turned a good guy. Imagine that. But he was so hated and reviled they had to wear a bulletproof vest, supposedly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But
if you think about it, with Sergeant Slaughter too, at the height of his popularity, he left WWF to have that deal with Hasbro to do G.I. Joe.
right.
And and he walked away, and something similar that's going on right now in the
Right.
WWE. But he was able to come back a few years later and headline WrestleMania with Hogan. So
Right. Yeah. Well, supposedly Hogan wanted him back for that. Yeah.
it was a great storyline. There's no
Yeah.
doubt.
Okay, so my number 4, and wrestling in the 70s, they would have these heels constantly coming and going, but there's one memorable heel that I always remember, and it was the German Teutonic Terror, Baron von Raschke. I don't know if you remember him.
Of course, yeah.
He had that
The
claw.
Iron Claw. Yep.
Yep.
It's before my time.
And what I remember about him is, he had no mercy. He fought Bruno at the Garden, and to end the match, they basically had him hit Bruno with a chair outside the ring and caused a disqualification so they could have their rematch. But also I remember when they had wrestling on the regular, normal, nightly, weekly show, when he would put the claw on somebody, sometimes it would cause blood. They would have that red X over the screen, which
I
was,
remember,
that was funny in itself. And so years later, I find out he's not even German. He's from Montreal. And
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good one. But he turned babyface for a while, like in the mid '80s, and
right,
that's another discussion of how many of these heels stayed heels.
right.
A lot of them did turn babyface at some point in their career. As a matter of fact, you could probably say that, with the exception, you could probably say that about everybody on our list at some point probably turned.
But actually, George, we were discussing it earlier today. That could be a topic for another show.
Best turns.
Best turns. Yeah.
Best turns.
But we could talk about that off camera after.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty obvious what number 1 would be.
Well, we all. Yeah.
I know. I get you.
Yep. Okay. So my number 3 is MJF.
Oh wow. Okay. I like
And I'll
it.
tell
That's
you
also
why.
high.
Because you know what? They keep saying how he's a young guy and he has such an impact on that crowd. I hear those crowds outside of the New York City. In fact, he even got the Queens crowd at the tennis stadium to turn on him. And in New Jersey,
We went to the show at the UBS Arena,
yeah,
and he got treated like a full-on babyface. I've
Oh,
never
yeah.
seen him get
Yeah, I
cheered.
know. Well, yeah, he's loved in Long Island.
I
There's no
cheered him.
doubt about
I mean,
that.
I love what he's doing. So I love heels. So
well, it was like Bret Hart being a heel in the U.S. and being a face everywhere
it'll
else.
never work
Like,
again.
Yep. Good point. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, he's reviled everywhere, and it just the way he works that crowd, and you can see it through the TV screen how much, for a kid that young to be able to control 20,000 people, I think it's remarkable.
You know what I love?
I think the big. Oh, go ahead, George.
What I love about MJF in Long Island is that since he was feuding with CM Punk at the time, we just now hate him here. Like, booed him out of the building. You know what he did? He came to the last show in a Tavares jersey.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was
John Tavares was an Islander, and he famously left. So
right.
They booed the hell out of him.
Yeah, right.
And even though he wasn't feuding with MJF at the time, still they hate him. They hate
but when
him
he first turned his back up on the stage, that's when they saw the Tavares.
Yeah, that was
jersey.
a great idea.
Yeah.
He just
and what he does too, which is a lost art in pro wrestling right now, is he never, he doesn't turn it on and off. He acts that way outside the ring too, outside the ring, and also off of TV.
Yeah,
so when he does meet and greets and when he's around fans, he's like that 24/7,
right?
Which is great. Really a lost art in pro wrestling. Yeah.
Keeps the kayfabe. He's the only one.
Oh yeah. So my number 2, and this is a funny story. So Bruno Sammartino. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But so he was a wrestler in the 60s, and he wasn't a great wrestler, and he was a little overweight. And Bruno went to Vince McMahon Sr. and suggested, he's not a great wrestler, and he can't really go very far anymore, but he's got the gift of gab, and he can really push these other wrestlers. I'm talking Captain Lou Albano.
That's a good one, yeah.
Oh, he's amazing. Like I remember the time they had the Manager of the Year award, and he lost it to Arnold Skaaland, and then he takes the trophy, busts it over Arnold Skaaland, knocks both him and Vince McMahon out of the ring. It was the funniest thing, yeah.
And you mentioned you mentioned the X on TV.
Right.
I remember that when he was managing Ray the Crippler Stevens.
Right.
And he had him attack Jimmy Snuka when Jimmy Snuka fired Albano and had Buddy Rogers as his manager. And they used the X because Jimmy Snuka was such a mess. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I can't believe
it. Yeah. Oh yeah. That was very sad to see. But I recently rewatched the match between Snuka and Ray Stevens, who I actually met one time, but that's another story for another day. But that match only went about 6.5 minutes. I feel the crowd got gypped on that one. And
I don't know. There wasn't a lot of long Jimmy Snuka matches if you go back, but
okay.
Jimmy Snuka's another one, classic matches. But that feud, and there was the match at the Garden with Lou Albano. Right. At the Garden, where he just beat Lou Albano to a bloody pulp.
But I remember watching that, and Albano always stayed on his feet. I guess he just couldn't take a fall.
I guess not. I
guess all punches. That's all it was, punches and stuff, until he finally got counted out and left the ring. And beat him to a bloody pulp. So my number 1, and you both discussed this already, is Roddy Piper. Okay. So there's no need to talk anymore about what he did to Jimmy Snuka, but
the coconut.
Memorable for me also was the feud that he had with The Rock's father, Rocky Johnson. So I remember that. So he's interviewing him and he says, "Oh, you should be shining my shoes, boy." So Rocky Johnson smacks him across the face. They fight. And so I went to see their match at the Nassau Coliseum, and Piper beat him with his feet on the rope. So of course, he really drew the heat that night. So, but
Piper was tremendous.
And the time he had, the way he made it so entertaining with a guy, a perennial jobber named Frankie Williams. That's
it. That was the first ever. It wasn't even called Piper's Pit. It was he took over Victory Corner. And Frankie Williams was the first ever guest. Yep.
Right. Yep.
But he just knew how to draw heat like no one else.
Oh yeah.
He really did.
Yeah. There was the time when he fought in Los Angeles wrestling. I guess it was part of NWA NWA. And he had his bagpipes, and he was supposedly going to apologize to the Mexican American crowd there. So he starts playing La Cucaracha on the bagpipes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was Piper.
Yep.
What a jerk.
But anyway, so I'm gonna just rattle off a few honorable mentions really quick. So there was the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. You know, everybody has a price for the $1 Million Man.
Yep. He was a good heel prior to coming to WWF in Mid-South. He was a great heel in Georgia Championship Wrestling. His feud with Tommy Rich. Awesome heel. Yep.
Right. But I love how, you know, he would have people kiss his feet and, you know, and bark like a dog and do all this stuff.
Didn't a wrestler do that? Was it Edge or
I don't
RVD?
know.
Somebody did. RVD maybe? I don't know. Someone
maybe one of the younger wrestlers.
I gotta look it up.
But I remember also he picked a kid from the crowd and he had him dribble the basketball, see if he can triple the basketball 10 times. And right when he got to 9, he kicked the ball.
Oh my
and
God.
wouldn't give him the money. Yeah.
Yep. That sounds like our Ted. But so anyway, George already mentioned him, Triple H. I mean, he always seemed like he was always on, even when he was a good guy, he was always on the verge of that heel turn.
Serial assassin.
And then I was telling George earlier, so back when I was a kid in the 70s, it was the golden age of wrestling managers. So I got to give a shout to Classy Fred Blassie and the Grand Wizard. Both amazing.
And Freddie Blassie is probably one of the few names that we mentioned. He never had a face turn, Freddie Blassie.
Right. Yeah.
And he, how hated he was out in LA in the West Coast.
Right.
Before he became a manager, when he was just a wrestler, and like he managed the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. Like, I don't think he ever had a face turn, Freddie Blassie.
I thought I heard a story where he got stabbed in the crowd as he was walking.
I'm sure it's true.
So much better.
Yeah, right.
So much
and
better.
then the Grand Wizard. I mean, he never took a fall, anything, but he was as funny as all get out.
Yeah.
You know, the things
excellent.
He would say. Yeah. So that's mine. Anybody have any other honorable mentions?
I put Randy Orton in there.
Right. With the punt kick to the head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Randy Orton.
And DiBiase was an original honorable mention for me, but I wanted to cut it a little short.
Right.
That's it for me.
But anyway, is there anything else we want to discuss about WWE? If you have a couple minutes, like
yeah, sure.
Any rumors that you know about that you?
I mean, well, the big topic right now is Sasha Banks and Naomi, who left during the broadcast of Monday Night Raw last Monday.
Oh, wow.
And they put their tag titles on John Laurinaitis' desk and they left. Wow. And the WWE is pretty much gone out of their way to talk about how unprofessional that was. But I think there's a lot of stories about, hey, Sasha Banks is a big star. Sasha Banks is probably, to me, in the WWE right now, top 5.
Right.
And I think they really thought that tag team and the tag team championships were going to get pushed to the moon, and it never really happened. And WWE always seems to have some problems with creative. I think things have gotten a little better in the WWE. I really enjoyed this past year's WrestleMania. But I think a lot of wrestlers, and you know this, Jack, from being a longtime fan, you're kind of under the control of the promoter and the booker. And I think right now, that superstars are finding their worth a little bit more. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Sasha and Naomi moving forward, whether if they ever come back to the WWE or, find another home someplace else. The good thing about pro wrestling right now is that there are options. There is AEW, there's Impact Wrestling. There's options out there. MLW, the NWA. So there's options out there. So I think right now it's not just all about the WWE, and this isn't a knock on WWE, but you can find another home if you want to be a pro wrestler.
Superstars are seeing what Cody did, and they're like, that could happen for me too. I could go out, make my name bigger, and they'll have no choice but to come back and pay me and push me to the moon because I'm the biggest star in wrestling. Like, I think Zack Ryder is right there. He's about to be. I think he should come back. I think they should really call him. There's a lot of guys.
But I think I've had Zack Ryder on the show. He's very, very happy with.
I know he is
right now.
So
and a lot of independent wrestlers do make a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
And they have a lot more opportunities to do other things that you can't do when you're under the WWE umbrella. Listen, WWE makes you a star. There's no doubt. You get national notoriety, and you're put on a platform that probably another other organization can do. But at the same time, you do have creative freedoms outside the WWE that you don't with WWE. And, WWE has control of your name. We're seeing it within the walls of the WWE where, look at an LA Knight just premiered on SmackDown, completely different name. Pete Dunne moves off of NXT, becomes Butch. Raquel Gonzalez is now Raquel Rodriguez. I think outside of the WWE, you do have a little bit more creative control, and you also have a little bit more ownership of your name. So it's interesting times in pro wrestling.
I forget who it was in AEW that said that they couldn't believe the artistic freedom that they had at AEW versus having been at WWE and having all these lines and stuff pushed at them. And it go and like George mentioned, it could go the other way. Look at Cody. Cody was gone for 7 years, comes back a much bigger superstar than he was when he left. Same thing with Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre was part of a horrible gimmick and faction, a three-man band, and then he comes back and, within a year of being on the main roster, he's a world champion. So you can
change this whole look. He killed it. Good for him.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, he looked tremendous. So.
Well, all right then. This has been a very fun discussion, and you know what? We have about 15 minutes before Raw. If you have anything else you want to discuss, maybe I'll throw one more question since you mentioned WrestleMania. What were your favorite matches in this past WrestleMania?
Well, I love seeing Stone Cold again.
Yeah, that was
awesome. Just to see him back in another match was just tremendous. The match of the weekend for me was Cody and Seth.
Yes,
I thought they killed it.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, and that weekend, not even part of the WWE, but Ring of Honor had a show, and FTR faced the Briscoes, which was amazing. FTR, I think, is one of the best tag teams out there now, and so are the Briscoes that never really had an opportunity to be on a big stage, but I think the Briscoes are tremendous. So but I would probably, for WrestleMania, I'd probably say Seth and Cody.
Okay, well, they match. Just announced FTR against, I'm sorry, what's their names? In AEW, they were the tag team champions. I'm drawing a brain freeze.
Which one's
That's the Hardys. No, not the Hardys.
Not the
Hardys. The Hardys are facing the Bucks.
That's
right. Sorry.
No. The guys with the beads coming down his face.
Peck. No,
not
beads.
They were with Adam Cole.
Oh, Red Dragon.
No, not them. No, it's oh man, I'm embarrassing myself.
I don't know.
So they were AEW tag team champions. I just can't remember their name for the life of me.
Well, you got the Young Bucks.
The Young Bucks. Oh, thank you.
I didn't know they were facing each other.
Yes, they just announced it. They're going to be.
They were with that. I forgot they were with Adam Cole right before Red Dragon came back.
Came
back because that was another match that was on Dynamite. FTR and the Bucks, which was right after the match we saw with FTR and the Briscoes. They killed it on Dynamite a few weeks back. Are you a big
Young Bucks fan? Do you like the Young Bucks?
I mean, I respect the Young Bucks a lot. I respect the Young Bucks. But I actually have become more of a Young Bucks fan lately.
Okay.
I like the character change, and I think they've been able to tell a really good story in the ring. So
they can't
I have a lot of respect for the Bucks. I do.
Okay. So CM Punk versus the champion Adam Page.
Adam Page, yeah.
Any predictions?
I mean, I love Hangman Page. I think they've done a great job of building him over the last 2 years. But I'm gonna have to go with Punk. I think Punk has got a lot of momentum on his side. If you look back at like August and September, AEW had some huge numbers rating wise for Punk. And I think it's Punk's time, and Punk has found his passion again. That feud he had with MJF and that dog collar match that they had.
Yes.
I was there in Orlando, and it was a great match for Revolution. So I'm going to probably have to go with Punk.
Okay.
That'd be nice to see.
I'm just gonna go on a whim for shits and giggles. I'm gonna say Adam Page. I think.
Okay. I get it. I love
The
Hangman
homegrown-
Page.
The homegrown kid. I mean,
Yeah. And who are you picking?
I feel like this might be Punk's last fucking world title run.
Okay.
So give him a world title run.
Okay, so it's 2 Punks to 1 Page.
Let him-
Okay,
I have a Daniel Bryan feud. That'd be
but
huge.
we'll see.
I wouldn't mind that all if Page retains, but I have a feeling it's going to be Punk as your new.
I feel like you got to put the belt on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to at least once.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. It's going to be great. That's.
I also want to give a shout out to Thunder Rosa.
Mm,
I'm looking forward to that match with Serena Deeb.
yeah, that's going to be a
Thunder
great
Rosa and I, best buddies. So got to go with my friend Thunder Rosa. I have a
Thunder
feeling
Rosa's
that
winning
she's
that
going to
match
retain.
for
Yes.
sure. Winning that match.
But
in my opinion.
you know what? They gave her a great opponent. I think
Serena
Serena
Deeb can go in
Deeb's
the
going to
ring.
kill it with her. Yeah,
Yes.
She's great in the ring.
Agreed.
that will be one of
It's
the
gonna be a
best
good
matches
match.
of the night. But
Does Britt Baker have a match?
yes.
Does she fight?
Well, no, actually, well, that depends. We
Yeah,
have.
she's in the tournament. She's in the
Right.
Owen Hart
She's gonna be in the paper.
Foundation tournament. So I have a feeling she'll find her way in that match at Double or Nothing next weekend.
That's my
Sure.
girl.
I think it could be her and Ruby Riott in the final.
That'd be
I
great.
think you might be right. I think
Good
it's
match.
going to be between Ruby and Britt Baker.
That's gonna be a good match.
Could be.
Yeah.
But,
It's already sold out, so that's going to be a hot night in Vegas.
all right.
Yeah. Wish
Yeah.
we could go. That would be great.
Yeah. Well,
One day we'll go to a pay per view.
yeah, one of these days. But hey, I'm happy just sitting in my living room watching it.
Yeah,
So that's
me
where
too.
we'll be Sunday night.
We'll
After
review
I get
it.
all my chores
We
done.
will review it.
But anyway,
Thank you.
David, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on the show.
Yes,
we
I
appreciate
hope
it
to
so
have
much.
you again soon, and we'll talk.
Enjoy the pay-per-view. Enjoy Double or Nothing, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
Okay, we
Thank you.
will.
Thank you.
All right, you got it. Nice meeting you,
Okay.
George.
Nice
Thanks,
meeting you.
Jack.
Thank
All right.
you
so much.
Jack.
Bye-bye.
Jack Toledano speaking for All or Nada. Have a good night, folks.